Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here in Utrecht. It's my second time, actually. First time around I was traveling through and didn't have a lot of time, unfortunately. This time I have a little bit more time. I'm going to stay until tomorrow, so I'm very much looking forward to checking out this space, amazing space here, and also a bit of the city of Utrecht, of course. I've already checked out the biking garage, which was very impressive. Everyone in Germany is always like, oh, you have to check out the biking garage in Utrecht at the station. So that was a very great start already. I want to thank Donika and her entire team for having me at this fabulous conference. And perhaps to start, Next Mannheim is a company that is owned by the city of Mannheim. Chairman of the board is the mayor. There's currently, I think, 52 people working for the company. We also run 8 startup hubs with about 35,000 square meters of office space and about 380 companies in these hubs. Half of them have a focus on the cultural and creative industries, and I'm going to briefly talk about these later on. I'm fortunate to head the only department that doesn't do any hardware. I always call this the hardware aspect, so I don't do any rental contracts. I only do projects with my team of currently 9 people. And I'm also give you a few examples of what we do and what our objectives are at Next Mannheim. The city of Mannheim started a creative city strategy when our mayor, Dr. Peter Kurz, was mayor for culture, and he developed this strategy with a very strong focus on music. And we opened in 2004 the first startup center exclusively for the music industry in Germany. With about 6,000 square meters, about 60 companies are currently there. In 2007, we purchased another building right across the street because we needed more space. And the entire music industry basically is represented in the hub. We have labels, we have publishing companies, recording studios, radio studios, up to security companies that primarily work in the music industry. And in the summer, we have regular electronic music events. A company called Cosmopop does regular events there. They also do a festival called Time Warp that you might have heard of. It's the biggest electronic music festival that we have in Mannheim every year. Some of this takes place here. A second hub we opened in 2012 called Altes Volksbad, which is in a neighborhood called Neckarstadt West. It's a very multicultural neighborhood, as is the city of Mannheim, by the way, with about 177 nationalities currently living there. It's always been a very multicultural city. The first language spoken in Mannheim was actually not German, but was Flemish and French, because the Kurfürst asked his colleagues to come to Mannheim to build the city. So I think that's quite remarkable. I always like to mention that it's sort of part of the Mannheim DNA is the multiculturalism. And we're very proud of that, and we think it's a potential. It's actually an opportunity rather than a risk that you have to deal with. The Alte Volksbad is a culture and creative industries hub as well, with a strong focus on urban district development or neighborhood development, if you will. We're trying to really open the hub as much as possible, so we do a lot of events there. There's regular concerts in the basement, which is protected. It's all, there are actually bathtubs in there. It's a very interesting place because when people didn't have their own bath, and it was in use until the late 80s, I believe, people went there to have a shower or sit in the bathtub. And I've never been there myself personally in the bathtub, but from what I've heard, it was a very, it was a social place where people actually chatted about, how's the family doing, how's your job, etc. What are the grandkids doing, etc. So it was always a place of exchange of social activity, and we're trying to keep that focus also with the companies that are in here and do regular events and try to really have everyone in the community come to the hub, not only to work but to exchange, to do homework, to just sit there and use it for whatever you want and whatever you like. In 2014, it was already mentioned in the introduction, Mannheim was joined the Creative Cities Network of the UNESCO as a city of music. Sort of granting, I guess, our efforts or cherishing or appreciating our efforts in terms of supporting music and the music industry. with in the pre-professional stage where we have a person taking care of all newcomers in the city. So if you're a band just starting up, there's a regular program that you can apply for that takes about a year, and you're coached by professional coaches, and there's a professional video production at the end and a big concert with a well-known band, etc. Then we used to have a cluster management music industry with 3 people taking care of all the professionals in the industry, trying to strengthen networks, do co-creative events, etc., and represent the city of music at national trade fairs abroad, internationally, as well as nationally and regionally, of course. And as I already talked about, the music park still being there as the first and only startup center exclusively for the music industry in Germany. Then you can see here in 2015 we opened C-Hub, which is another culture and creative industries hub with a focus, or not a focus, for the entire culture and creative industries. What's special here is we have showrooms on the first floor where the companies can sell their products or services directly, or you can check them out. We have a communal gallery right across where they have 6 exhibitions every year, also featuring local and regional artists always. And we have a restaurant, which is a trivial detail, but we find that community building and sort of communication exchange is always much easier when there's food and drink. So in the hubs that have a restaurant, it's always much easier. When you don't have that, it takes a lot more effort to really get the community engaged and going. That is the C-Hub. It's in an old harbor area called the Jungbusch, which is sort of the creative and nightlife neighborhood these days. But that's developed within the last 10 to 15 years. The last hub that I'm going to talk about is the Textilerei. It's a very small one with about 8 companies with a focus on fashion and textile industries. What's special here is we have a little retail store on the first floor where the companies collectively sell their products. And we're trying to bring in people into the hub here as well and to showcase, of course, the companies that we have in the hub. And we have a little machinery park actually here as well, where the companies can do small additions, very small additions or prototypes for free. So sewing machines, etc., that are free of charge. I know the Dutch are way ahead when it comes to nightmares, but we were the first city to introduce a nightmare in 2018, taking care of all the night culture, nighttime economy stakeholders in the city. This is actually the second one. This is my colleague Robert Gar. The main objectives are mediation or moderation before actual conflicts arise. So we're trying to bring the different parties together and try to find a common solution. For instance, noise complaints, or if there's too much litter on the street, or if mobility could be optimized, etc. at night, all of these aspects. We're trying to strengthen the networks in night culture and nighttime economy. That's not been happening before we started this position, so I think it's very important that this position has been created. And I can say a little bit proudly that there was no club that had to close during the COVID pandemic. I think it had a little bit to do with this position and keeping the communication flow between all the support programs that were there, and trying to also provide funds from the city to help the clubs and the live music venues through this very difficult time. And of course, last but not least, I think that's the most important aspect, is the co-creation of innovative formats for the night. One of the projects was, for instance, also during the pandemic, to create free outside open air spaces for clubs and live music venues because they couldn't perform inside. So we came up with 3 or 4 different locations that could be used out in the open without any of the usual corona restrictions. So that was a very important part of supporting the clubs and the live music venues. What are the objectives of the Cultural Innovation and Creative Economy department that I'm heading? We do so-called cross-innovation projects at the intersection of art, culture, business, technology, and science, where we're trying to get into a productive dialogue, artists and creatives, with people from other businesses and sectors. Because we find that artists and creatives think differently than engineers or business people, for instance. and they tend to do very well in so-called open processes, where innovation processes or change processes are always open processes because you never know where you're going to end up. You don't know how long it will take, and there's always a risk of failure as well with open processes. So we found that artists are always engaged in open processes because once you start with the first word or the first note or the first paintbrush, etc., you don't know exactly where you're going to end up. So it's not really about the art itself, but about the artistic approach or the artistic thinking that we're trying to implement in, say, entrepreneurial context or scientific context or tech context. We do different projects here, but I'm not going to go into this today. I'm going to go a little bit deeper into what we call creative placemaking projects. So we go into public space with art and culture and try to showcase potentials of places. How could the place also be used? What is there that is also perhaps there but is not used to the extent that it could be? And we're trying to use art and culture to sort of highlight these aspects. I'm going to talk about a little bit about some of the projects that we've been doing in the past. Night governance, I already talked about. I'm not going to go into that as well. And then, of course, the entire support for the culture and creative industries with a focus on the music industry, design industry, film, and the fashion industry. Fashion industry is actually, at least to the German definition, not an official part of the culture and creative industries, but we consider this part of the design industry and try to create synergies, especially between the music field and the design and fashion field. That's why we support this rather small market in Germany, in Mannheim, with the fashion industry. What are some of the projects that we have done in the past that I want to briefly touch upon? One is a project called stad, which is a platform for pop-up uses. We introduced this in, I believe, 2017, 2018, where we tried to bring or connect people who had space available and people who were looking for space, for artists, for creatives, and for startups. If you now go to the site, I warn you, it's not in its current function, but we're going to return it to that function because we've been trying to generate living spaces from people from Ukraine, because the mayor asked us to use this tool to do that. So that's what we currently did for the last time here on this platform. We don't get involved in any contract, so basically all we do is provide the platform. We're bringing the two parties together, a person who has space available and a person who's looking to do a pop-up or temporary use. That's the only thing that we do. We guide in the process. We try to build trust on both sides, but we don't get involved in any contractual stuff because the real estate people would freak out if you do that. So we've gotten a few very upset calls anyway because we have this platform. They were like, "What are you doing? You're not supposed to do this as a city." But we said, we're only doing this for temporary use up until 2 years at the most. So they were like, "Okay, we can accept that." So we're not sort of messing with the real estate business. One of the pop-up uses that we do regularly is called Hometown Glory, where we feature fashion designers in Mannheim, and that's been so successful that we're asked to do it all over the place. We've done it at big department stores, at big stores in the city, etc. I don't know, I think it's been going on for 6, 7, 8 years now. We actually wanted to stop the project because we thought, okay, it's run its course. We've done it so many times, but we actually get requested by the stores to could you do another edition? It works so well, and could you do this? So we've been running this Hometown Glory for several years now as one of our pop-up concepts in the city. Last year we did what we call Zwischenzeit Festival, which is sort of a pop-up festival because we wanted to generate trust with people who owned property, who owned real estate, because we still found that a lot of people are sort of skeptical when it comes to pop-up uses. They're usually like, "Oh, I'm not sure what they're going to do there. They're not going to leave again. I don't want to charge way less than I usually do, which is what you have to do with a pop-up, because otherwise it doesn't make sense, especially at the very central positions at the downtown area where the rents are astronomical. So these are some of the things that we're trying to step by step get rid of or work towards, that people who own property and own real estate understood the potential of pop-up uses. I don't know what the case is here in Utrecht. If that's not an issue, it's definitely still an issue in Mannheim. And we're currently engaged in a big downtown transformation project where we're actually receive funds from the federal government to do pop-up uses in the downtown core areas of the city, to experiment a little bit about what might work, to have culture and creative industries, but also arts and crafts or urban production more in the center of the cities, and to be able to visibly see people and experience what's going on there directly again. So that's a little festival that we did primarily to invite a lot of people who owned real estate to see, this was what it could feel like in your space, etc. Come join us next time. This is a creative placemaking project on the move, so to speak. It's a very simple idea. It was generated in a project called Migrants for City, where migrants actually thought about how can we make Mannheim better, more interesting, more inclusive. And they came up with the idea of having music in a place that is usually not associated with music at all. So we put it in a tram at a regular, running hours. So the only thing that you need is a ticket. It's not marked as a special train. You just enter the train and then there's live music. We did this at a neighborhood festival called Nachtwandel over 2 days, and it's been so successful that actually the tram company has requested that we do this project, and we've done it, I think, like 6 or 7 or 8 times now. And I'm going to just play you a little clip just to give you an impression. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I think what is remarkable is here how people interact differently when there's music, when the space gets a different quality suddenly when there's music, and I think that's kind of interesting to see. I'm going to shut up for just really quickly.
I spent the whole night calling out your name, and it's been such a shame that you used to run while I crave. Oh, what do you expect when you throw a collect all the broken pieces in a living space? So many words falling from my mouth again, but my can carries them away. Oh, what if I'm awake? All the things you said dealt with it to distract from my sake. And now I'm fools, pretending he didn't go.
Yeah, this are some of the impressions. It's actually a project that the First Nightmare did, and I still like to play this clip, and I like to just showcase the atmosphere of what a regular tram ride might also feel like and look like if you have a little bit of music in there. What's called das kleine Parkraumwunder in German, and I apologize that the clip is going to be also in German, is an idea to how can we sort of get people to think about what to do more creative stuff with the parking lots that we have in the city. As you know, cars are parked for 95% of the time, and it's dead space, and it's private property that is placed in the public realm for a relatively low fee. And what we did is here we built a wooden car that is almost life size. That you can pull anywhere, and there was a legal loophole where you can actually park this legally on a car parking spot. So it's public property, more or less. People can just take it. It's very hard to do on your own, but if you have 2 or 3 friends with you, you can basically carry it to wherever you want, or push it to wherever you want, and use it for whatever you want. I'm just going to play you this little clip. We used it as a DJ council for an event called Lichtmeile at the Neckarstadt West. But it was used for many different purposes, like the kids painted it differently, people played cards or board games, they had lunch on it, etc. So a lot of different things. I'm just going to play you this little clip.
Ich freue mich sehr, dass wir das kleine Parkraumwunder in Kooperation mit Bauhaus und der Werkhalle auch für Mannheim umsetzen konnten.
We did this with kids from the neighborhood. They actually built it together with a makerspace, Werkhalle, and the company is called Bauhaus. They provided the materials for us to build this thing.
Es handelt sich hierbei um eine mobile Architektur, die dazu einlädt, den öffentlichen Raum sich neu anzueignen.
We're going to keep using this as a mobile architecture now for this downtown transformation project where we need assets like this. The tires are, we need to renew the tires right now, so you can't move it, but we'll fix that and it's going to be up and running again, hopefully soon. Music, as you probably noticed, is a big part of the Mannheim identity, and it always has been, from classical music to jazz to electronic music, indie music, etc. There's a very lively festival scene in Mannheim, but if you arrive at the train station in Mannheim, at the main station, you would not notice that this city has anything to do with music. Because there's hardly any busking, there's no street music out in the streets for some reason. So what we try to do here is give a little impulse or a little inspiration perhaps how the city could feel if there was more music out on the streets that you could just experience walking down the street. And we did the first busking festival last year, and we're going to continue to do that hopefully. And the main goal here was to sort of have people experience the city in a different way. That's why I think it's also really a placemaking project at the intersection of music and creative placemaking. And we also at the same time worked at the on the regulation for busking that were fairly strict in Mannheim together with the municipality, which was quite a difficult and a long process, but I think we finally arrived at it, and I hope next month actually council is going to vote on it, that we're going to have it way less bureaucratic than it used to be. For instance, you couldn't play any electronically enhanced or amplified music, which I think is insane if you keep within the regulatory limits. So you couldn't play even a keyboard or something like that. Then you had to switch positions every half hour. Then you had to pay a fee of about, I think, roughly 18 euros per day to play. And all of this, kept people from actually engaging and playing music out on the street. So we tried to make this a lot more easier and inviting. So we're not going to have a fee. The times are going to be different. Electronic amplification is not going to be an issue anymore. And then hopefully within 1 or 2 years, we're going to have a little effect. But I'm going to play you a couple of clips, a couple of impressions from the first busking festival that we did last year. Just to give you an idea of what it felt like. We started to really focus on the issue of placemaking and creative placemaking about 4 years ago, where we said, we need to move out of the institutions and really go into the public realm with art, creativity, and culture more. And I don't think it's our objective or our goal to do all of that ourselves at Next Mannheim, but we really want to sort of inspire, empower, and bring various different stakeholders to do placemaking projects themselves. But in order to kickstart things a little bit, we brought in experts from all over Europe in order to discuss current trends, best practices, etc., in the realm of placemaking for our first placemaking forum, which we've done twice already. The second time around, we had to do it virtually because of Corona, unfortunately. But I hope this year we're going to be able to have an analog edition, and once again, which I much prefer. I think it's still so much different when you have someone face to face, and the discussions and the discourse and the exchange are just so different than doing it virtually only. I'm going to play just a couple impressions here, but we're going to move on pretty quickly. This took place in a place called Multihalle, which we're also currently involved in, which is a big placemaking project. It's the biggest wooden panel construction in the world, which was built by Frei Otto. It's a Pritzker Prize winner architect that already passed, unfortunately, but is a very remarkable building in Mannheim, and everyone I take there is usually very fascinated by the place because it has a very, very special atmosphere. We developed a new use concept with it, and we're going to continue to do that, and we're going to go into an interim curation in 25, hopefully. The restoration of the roof is currently underway, and we're going to be probably the operators in 27, so it's still a way to go. But that's one of the other and the big placemaking event projects that we're currently involved in. With regard to time, I'm just going to skip on. I wanted to give you one example of a placemaking project, and one of the first ones what we did is Haltestelle Fortschritt, which translates into station progress. We went into an actual place of fear, or sort of a neglected place, but that had a lot of qualities and a lot of urban qualities too. It has a nice green area, there's a little park, there's a sporting facility, there are basketball courts, etc. But it wasn't used to that extent at all. So we tried to sort of showcase or push the place a little bit and to inspire hopefully a few people to use this place differently. So what we did is we built together with Yalla Yalla and Brückner, which is an architecture office and a communication design company, a temporary architecture out of wood, and placed that under the bridge here, and did cultural programming. We had music, we had readings, we had film screenings, we did a one-day conference on urban development, all free under the bridge. We did an urban hacking workshop together with the communication design students that developed projects during the festival and then presented them during the festival as well. And and just transformed this place temporarily to something else than it used to be. And here's some pictures from that. I'm just going to continue talking. I'm going to be done really quickly. I'm always asked in how far are creative placemaking projects sustainable, and I think that's a very important question and a valid one. And if you went to this place where we did this, it looks very much like it did before, unfortunately. But what it led to is that we received funds from the city council now to support citizen-led placemaking projects, which is exactly what we wanted to do and what we intended from the very beginning, because we can't and don't want to do placemaking projects in all of the spots that probably would require it in the city, but we want to sort of empower people to do their own projects, guide them along a little bit, help them with permits. If you've ever done a project in the public space, you know it can be a real pain in the ass to get permits from many different council members and many different positions in the city. So we helped along with that, and it led to the fact that we, for the last 2 years now, had funds to support these projects, both financially as well with a little process guidance. And these are some pictures from the first Haltestelle Fortschritt, which we did a second time in a different spot, and which also led to a bigger placemaking project called Alter, which is very much very similar than Raum, actually. I think it feels very similar, has similar aspects to it. That's why I didn't want to showcase it today, because I feel like you know this place, but there is one in Mannheim that feels similar. And the last one, and I'm going to leave it here, is what I call a digital placemaking project. I don't know, is anyone familiar with the Mix the City project? Has anyone ever encountered this? So you can go to mixthecity.com. It's a project that was developed by the British Council Tel Aviv. And we were together with Hamburg, the first German city to do the project. The initial idea is very simple and it's very basic. You pick 12 musicians and film them with 2 short samples in remarkable spots in the city. And then with these 24 samples, you can create your own soundtrack of what you think the city sounds like or should sound like, which sounds like a almost childish tool, is actually very complex. And I haven't heard 2 mixes that sound completely alike. So you can really make music with this tool. And what I like about it here is it involves the digital realm. It's people can actually create their own soundtrack, but you have a direct relation between music, place, and sort of the identity of the city, if you will, that is continuously being described or reinvented by the people themselves. I'm just going to play you the clip that the artistic director Sigi Hazadur did, and then I'm going to leave you, and I'm very much looking forward to our discussions in the rest of the day. There were 2 requirements in the project. There was the key that was supposed to be in, and that there were no explicit lyrics mentioned, because ultimately it was planned that you could do an international mix with all the cities that were involved in this project, which unfortunately never materialized. But if you're wondering why she's only singing da da da, that's the reason why. All right, time is running out. If you, I'm sorry. If you have any questions, remarks, please get in touch. I'll be here for the rest of the day as well. And I think I'm supposed to finish with this slide. Thank you very much for having me.
Matthias Rauch!